Hello and welcome in to yet another episode of Wildly Informed. Always great to jump on the podcast when the Wild are playing well, and they are. So we've got lots of good stuff to talk about today. But as we always do, got to check in with everyone. Brett Marshall here alongside my pal Isha. Isha, how's it going tonight?
Good, man. Happy to be back on the podcast. And you said it. It's always fun talking about this team when they're winning versus trying to deal with the losses. And not only are they winning, they are just playing good hockey overall. A lot of the little things that we were critical of last week, and that's with the caveat that this is the start of the season. We get it. And listen to episode 4 if you guys are already being like, guys, it's the start of the season, why are you being critical? But long of the short of it, everything that we were talking about that we would have liked to see improve seemingly improved this week, mind you, with only 2 games.
Yeah, it was good. I've been kind of tracking more or less like week to week stats across the board, and like exactly to your point, like I don't really like publish that stuff. Like I suppose I could, but like basically exactly as you mentioned, like the areas where they were like lower in terms of like their league rank, like all of that has gone up, like marginally so here and there. But like with 2 games, it's going to be hard to get it to like uber spike. So it's been really nice to see them kind of just like play better, and they've got a little bit more going at 5-on-5 offense, largely in part due to their showing last night in Florida. That helped quite a bit. But yeah, it's been great to see, and as this team hopefully continues to get healthier. I mean, the fact that they're doing this without Spurgeon, they've done this without Eck. They've missed Hartman a couple games. They've missed Johansson, who in his own rights played well. Like,
Yep.
like they've just been like a wagon just of perfect health and everything. Like it's guys are stepping up, and we'll talk about some of those guys that are stepping up. But it's been really great to see here through these first, 6 games in now, I think.
Yeah, and I believe they're second in NHL history in not having or not trailing to start an NHL season behind. I want to say it's like a 60s or 70s Boston team. Is that
The
correct?
69-70 Bruins are the last
Okay.
ones.
And so I think Mateo was doing some math because I was hosting a watch party for the last game, and he said it would be the end, like third period of game 8.
Yeah,
roughly.
it was like 470 minutes or something, I think, is what it was, or somewhere around there. So yeah, it's been awesome.
Yeah, that is amazing.
I want it'd be cool to like break that record and be like, hey, wait, like the Wild have done something that no other team.
Hey, we get another banner.
Yeah, right. Longest leading streak to start the season.
Fans, Koivu, and yeah, long. And
it would be quite
before Kaprizov.
Yeah, it would be quite the selection for sure.
Oh, that would be so on brand for Minnesota Wild hockey too, to hang that banner.
Yeah. Let's see. Here we go. I had this stat in my newsletter split up. 457 minutes and 21 seconds. And I believe right now it'd be like 360 and then a little bit of change. Like it'd be 365 plus whatever the one overtime game was. So
man. And we'll get into it in the second half of the show, in the second segment of the show, Puck Your Opinions. But like their 5-on-5 defensive play and work in their own zone is likely going to make that, I guess, record achievable, because it's been nothing short of spectacular recently.
Yeah, I mean, they're doing exactly like everything you could possibly want your team to do defensively. They've done.
Like,
to a team.
And we'll talk about Gustafsson as well there too. But let's get to the first segment of the show here, the analytics agenda, where we talked about, well, I'm not even going to say we, Brett, well, I took notes, talked about expected goals last week. This week in application, let's get to our first segment.
That's dope. I haven't seen that yet. That was dope. That was a premiere segment introduction video there. So Well done on that. Yeah. So as you mentioned, we're going to keep chatting about expected goals today. Last week, we kind of talked about what they are, how they kind of came to be. So today we're going to take that now kind of the next level in terms of like, how do you apply that? Casey, now you know what expected goals are. How do you interpret them? How do you use them? How can you help evaluate players? So I kind of break it into like the three different categories: offense, defense, goaltending. So we'll start with offense. So the basis is that a higher expected goals for means the player probably spent more time in the offensive zone, generated lots of quality scoring chances, or if you're looking at it from the 5v5 standpoint, the line or the players who's on the ice with generated a lot of that opportunity, chances, things like that. Um, if you do kind of want to break it down to like one more level deep, you can go into individual expected goals, abbreviated by lowercase I, lowercase x, capital G, IXG. And that's just going to be a measure of a player's individual contributions to the overall XG. So if a player, Eck is a fiend at racking up individual expected goals because, as we've shown, he basically takes all of his shots to remain on top of the crease. So oftentimes those have a pretty high chance of going in. They have a higher XG value. So a lot of the offense he drives in that sense that he's getting a lot of those chances because he's a menace near the crease. The other thing you can be used for on the offensive side is you may have heard the term finishing before, and like we've heard like Kirill Kaprizov is a good finisher, or that Connor McDavid's a good finisher, Austin Matthews is a good finisher. What does that mean? Well, like expected goals helps explain that a little bit. So the way I look at finishing is it's the difference between the expected goals and the actual goals scored. So good finishers are scoring more goals than the numbers say are expected, and bad finishers are going to score fewer goals than expected. So historically, the Wild have been a team that have had a lot of really bad finishers because they haven't really ever been a high scoring team. But finishing is actually one of the things that's really propelled this offense this year. Like Matt Zuccarello, I think, is scoring at a pretty high clip. A couple other players, I think Eck actually is over as expected. I think Boldy is. Like they're finishing on their chances. So like anything, you're likely looking at eventual regression a little bit to the mean there. But finishing's one where there will be guys that consistently are scoring more goals than they're expected, and that's because XG is not a perfect stat, and we'll talk about why that isn't here in a little bit. But it's not uncommon for good finishers to remain above their expected goals mark and bad finishers to be lower. Like regression can come a little bit more for those guys in the middle, but there is kind of those two ends of the spectrum as well. So then conversely, on the defensive side of the puck, kind of the exact opposite here, a lower expected goals against could mean technically one of two things. One, it could mean they defended really well and limited chances, or it could mean they spent a lot of time in the offensive zone as well. And therefore, the other team just didn't have a chance to generate a lot of offense because they were defending the whole time. How can you kind of tell, like, if you're looking at, wow, this guy looks like he had a really good game defensively, how do I know if it was, did he defend well in the offense, defensive zone? That line spent a lot of time in the offensive zone. What kind of was it? So you can kind of, again, this is that call back again. We can look at the Corsi or Fenwick, right? So if a team had a lot of attempts, but they had a low expected goals against, that probably means they defended well because it means they're blocking shots. The shots are coming from the outside, which is basically what the Wild have been doing. Like their Corsi isn't super high throughout the season, but their expected goals against has been really, really good. So both scenarios are good. Like I think like what's made the grief line so good is I think they're more on that forechecking side where they would just pin teams down in the offensive zone. Didn't always mean they were like peppering pucks on net like a Kaprizov line might, but they'd suffocate them defensively. And then when they did get the defensive zone, they were able to keep shots outside, different things like that. So using both of these things together, we can get an expected goal share, which is like everything else. That's just going to be the percentage of total expected goals that were accumulated by both teams, and it's percentage of what percent of those went your way or for your team. So as you see on screen here, this is from the Florida game. The Wild with Matt Boldy on the ice, just shade under 80% of the expected goals. So of all the expected goals, the Wild with Boldy on the ice had 80% of them. That's kind of what that means. So that's how we use those together. To me, this is still my favorite stat to use. I think it's a really good indicator of kind of game flow, how things are going. You will see occasionally on sites like Natural Stat Trick or Evolving Wild, you'll see something called SVA or what's called score venue adjusted. And that's just like another layer deep where those values are adjusted for the score. There are certain venues that maybe put a higher emphasis on certain shots or count shots more than others. So it adjusts for all that stuff, home and away, bias, all of that. So I typically don't use that. And at least my player cards, when I do like my cumulative ones, I will a little bit more, but different things like that. So that's kind of the offensive side of the puck, the defensive side of the puck. The final layer to this, goaltending, and it's goal save above expected. So to me, this is like you could pretty much use this stat as the one holistic goalie stat because I think it's that good. It's a really simple calculation. You take the total expected goals against a goalie in a game and you subtract the actual goals that he allowed, and you get his goal save above expected, or GSAX, GSAX, whatever you want to talk about it. It's basically, to me, it's a really good indicator of whether or not the goalie is making the saves that he should or not, if he went above and beyond. Typically, like, we'll see GSAX can be anywhere. We've seen all over the spectrum. Even this year, like I think Fleury's game, he had like an expected goals against of like a shade over 2. We gave up 4. So he had a negative goal save above expected for that game. Philip Gustafsson, I believe in every single one of his starts has been above. He's saved more than what was expected based on the shots that he faced. So it's by far not a perfect stat, but I think when you look at the data we have available in the public sphere, it's far better than like save percentage, goals against, because it is a way that it can factor in that shot quality. So overall, is XG a perfect stat? No. Like the tracking of exact shot data is still complex, and the NHL doesn't fully release all of the data to the public sources. So people like Evolving Hockey, like Natural Stat Trick, like Money Puck, they don't have access to like the down to the detailed data that could make their XG models better, but the NHL reserves that for their internal uses. There's a couple companies like Sportlogic and stuff, which I think have access kind of that. So it makes those private models a little bit more accurate. Still, the public models are relatively accurate. 75 to 80% of the time, they're pretty much right on in their predictions. 20 to 25% of the time, it might not totally reflect what happens. So, as I always say with anything, like that's why it's important to match up what you see with what the numbers show to see if they do agree. Like, don't rely on one versus the other. Use them together. That'll usually tell you the whole story. So, that's pretty much it. That's all I got on expected goals. There's a lot there, but hopefully between the last 2 episodes, when we bring that up on the show now, you have a little bit better understanding of kind of what that means, how it's impacting the game, all that good stuff.
No, and thanks, Brett. Appreciate that. And every analytics agenda segment, when you're watching this after it's live, it's not on the channel right now, but if you're listening to this on the podcast on Friday, or if you're watching this Thursday or Friday, or on the weekend catching up on the show, you can find every segment of the analytics agenda posted in its own segment by itself on the Sota Pod YouTube channel, as well as we started off with the simple ones in Corsi and Fenwick, and now starting to work our way down, work our way up, as Brett educates you guys and just goes over some simple analytics so that when so you can read his player cards a little bit better and support his work there, and B, to give you an extra layer to analyze the game and to maybe even understand a little bit more, as more times, more often than not, now even broadcasts and articles and stuff are referring to these simple stats that Brett has been going over with us these last 5 weeks.
Yeah, and like on the topic of like being educated, I think like you even hear fans opposing players and players talk about like just what makes playing in Minnesota a little bit unique. It's that because we're so well versed in the game, like there will be times where it feels like the fans are into it because it's really quiet, but it's because a lot of us are sitting there like analyzing, watching the breakout.
Hello?
There we go. I don't know.
Okay, yeah, I was like, I thought there was me for a second. I was just about to say, I think we lost you. Okay, we got you.
Where'd it cut out? I'll say it again.
You said that you were passionate fans, and when you're watching the game, sometimes people think that you guys are maybe bored, but it's just because you're quietly analyzing the game.
Yeah, like we're watching breakouts, neutral zone regroups, rushes, all that stuff. And it's because so many, it's such a big sport in the state. A lot of us either grew up watching siblings playing it ourselves, grew up, hardcore Wild fans as it is. So, being able to add analytics to the base knowledge that many of us already have, I think just, it makes us some of the best, most educated hockey fans out there. So when you do get into Twitter arguments, you can throw the facts at them and then they'll be like, and then they don't know what to do anymore. So, because you win.
Or they
And
just
then-
yell
Yeah.
and get very angry.
Or they get mad and be like, no cups, state of hockey. And it's like, yeah, I haven't heard that one before. Try again.
Have you gone to a state tournament game? Yeah. Anyways, well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get to our second segment here. Puck your opinions.
I just want to say, puck your opinion.
What do we got today, Brett?
Yeah, so the couple that I pulled out here because I feel like there might be one that you're maybe a little more passionate about than other based on conversations that we've had. But we'll start here with Marat Khusnutdinov versus Freddie Gaudreau as the third line center while Ryan Hartman is injured. So obviously it sounds like he's dealing with some sort of upper body injury. Russo mentioned today that it seems to be like it's impeding his ability to shoot the puck. So I would assume that's either probably like something in the shoulders, maybe like the wrists, somewhere in that realm. That's just, there's like a soreness where he can't get around in the shot the way that he wants. So we've seen both these guys kind of mixed in here. We saw Marat get a crack at it. You were just showing the numbers from last night. The line that had Freddie with Moose and Trennan was astounding. They played great defensive hockey last night. So I just kind of want to debate a little bit on, while Hartman's out, which doesn't seem like it's going to be a super long-term thing, but who should continue to see that spot, versus like personal bias versus kind of what the numbers show. So just to kind of give like an overview of the numbers before we get into opinions. So Khusnutdinov with Trennan and Foligno, when they've been on the ice together, no goals for, no goals against, but only rocking a 39.5% expected goal share. So not ideal for a shutdown line to be having that kind of numbers. However, when Marat is with Lauko on the fourth line, so whether that's been Gaudreau or Ogren and whoever else, it's been kind of rotating into that fourth line winger spot when those two have been on the ice. 0 goals for, 1 against, but they're rocking a 59.3% expected goal share. So when you move Marat from that third line role to that fourth line role, we're seeing like a jump almost 20% in his expected goal share, which I think is notable at that point. And then it's a very small sample because I think last game was kind of the first time we've seen a Freddie Moose Trennan line.
Yeah.
But they were great. 76.1% expected goal share against the defending cup champions and the offensive firepower that they bring. So we've talked a little bit like on this show already. Like I don't have an issue with Freddie Gaudreau, the bottom six forward. Like I think he's fine there. And I think the other thing that was a little bit impressive to me is Freddie's been like mostly playing on the wing when he's been on the fourth line. And then to be able to kind of just seamlessly jump into the third line last night into the center role and still produce good results, I think shows some of the nice versatility I think that we forget sometimes that Freddie has.
And the speed. Like he was the fastest guy on that line.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not like, Moose has never been like the quickest guy, but he's certainly like not slow. Trennan, I've wanted to see more like explosiveness from him this season. I feel like it's been lacking a bit, and it's not like he's been poor. I think honestly, maybe the case it's just been Lauko that has been so much better than I expected, so much quicker than I expected, and that's why I love him with Marat still. I don't care if you call it the third or fourth line, whether it's on the fourth line spot or the third. I want to see Marat with Lauko. Like they just play, from what I've seen thus far, so well together. They match like Lauko's just north-south speed is awesome. And then you pair that with Marat's just quick playmaking, quick thinking, sometimes even too quick for some of his line mates. Like he's had some crazy, like no look, through the legs behind passes that like no one was looking at the ice or reading the play like Marat was there, who was like, all right, A and B option is, send the puck around. There's someone on my side there. Or if someone moves back right behind me, I can get them behind me. No one will see it. He's like one step ahead of everybody, which is awesome to see because he's just firing on all cylinders. But long and the short of it, I like him with Lauko, despite them giving up, was it 1 goal thus far?
1 goal, which through 6 games.
It's whatever. It's expected, to be perfectly honest. And I don't want to see them separated. And what's awesome about my wish there is, like you highlighted, Freddie, Moose, Trennan, they looked great together. And yeah, Freddie Gaudreau replace his line mates, put him on the wing, put him on the center. Like, he is what he is, and he's adaptable.
Yeah, I'm surprised we're in lockstep here. I thought you'd maybe be campaigning for Marat a little bit higher up the lineup.
Because
I know
for me, it's like, okay, so he gets 3 minutes less a night, but he's with
Right.
a favorable line mate, which I'd rather see than honestly like the slower guys who are working to create space versus actually try to carry the puck in as well, or actually, when you're fishing for it, create something after you get it versus sending it back, to the neutral zone or sending it deep.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've seen a lot of good things from Marat and from Lauko, and I think especially when you're looking at a rookie, like if there's one thing that can help a rookie out, one, it's putting him in a position to succeed, and two, just giving him like some semblance of consistency, right? So if you're early in your career, he obviously got his cup of coffee last year, whatever it was, like 20 games or something. I think he played last year.
He just feels like a seasoned pro already, though.
He does, yeah. Like we
right?
forget that he's still a young player. I mean, obviously,
Yeah.
a little bit of a seasoned pro if you look at kind of his time in the KHL, but I think just being able to establish that consistency, like, hey, you're a fourth line center, you are one of our, I don't know if they might be the penalty kill unit 2 right now. I think amid all the injuries, we didn't get to see it last night, which was pretty cool.
Which is great.
Yeah, so
I'll say the Wild, they overall played very disciplined. They did get away. They got away with 2 blatant penalties that were not called. One is slashing in the first period, and I believe it was an interference in the third. And I love Randy Mahler, so I was listening to the Panthers broadcast. And though they are a little biased, like, they rightfully were calling out both of those 2, and I was like, "Yep, got away with them. That's okay. I'll take it."
Yeah, but I mean, I think part of that too just comes from, if you're the team that's dominating the game, sometimes you're going to get those calls are going to go in your favor a little bit. Like, hey, you're the ones dominating, you're going to go on the power play because of that, and maybe we'll cut you a break a little bit on the kill. And yeah, like maybe a couple of obvious ones missed, but it's great to see that discipline from a team that's historically lacked it. And it's just it's been a trickle down. Just from every aspect of their game just seems to be firing right now, and I think that's the benefit too, is, probably doesn't matter where a lot of these guys play right now, because everyone's just like, it just seems to be like an all-in team effort. No one cares about personal goals. Like, obviously Kaprizov, like, he's the guy that you think might score 50, but Zuccarello leads the team in goals right now with 4. Like, yeah. And they don't care. They were joking about it. Like, hey, it's working. We don't care who's scoring the goals as long as they're winning the games.
No, absolutely. And the fact that they're not taking penalties and honestly working their sticks well, picking the pocket of their opponents deep in their zone, winning board battles, and again, not going over the line and having to put themselves on the PK there was awesome. I thought their 5-on-5 defensive play last night against the Florida Panthers was outstanding. It's like, really, Brett, if anything, because once the Panthers got into the zone, if they were able to get a scoring chance, the Wild only allowed 1, and then they broke up their play. They got possession back, and it was right back into the Panthers zone. Like, pretty much the first 10 minutes, Panthers went like balls to the wall, like literally just like went pedal to the metal for the first 10 minutes. Wild were like, holy shit, there's a lot going on here. It's bang, bang, bang. We're basically forced to only play defense. Can't set anything up. Once Florida took their foot off the pedal for just a moment, it was like the Wild either broke up their rush, got the puck back in the neutral zone, or only allowed 1, not even high danger scoring chance, and then were able to get right back into their kind of flow state. And don't get me wrong, they were tested at some points, and Philip Gustafsson, the wall man, all aboard the Gus bus. He played outstanding too when he needed to.
Yeah, and I think, you look at the one goal he gave up, there's probably the one time all of that really broke down. Like, John Merrill got turned around a little bit on like an odd man rush, pass gets through, it's kind of a backdoor tap, and not much you can do. But it was just, it's just, they're so sound. Like, even look at like the heat maps where the shots came from. There's a lot from kind of the top of the circles. The couple chances they did get in tight, like you said, Philip Gustin was there to answer the bell. Like, it's just, once like it's so often in the past it would seem like, especially last year, where there'd be an offensive breakdown, which then led to a defensive breakdown, then it seeming like it led to a goal. Like it almost like you could feel it coming before it even happened. Like, oh shit, there's a turnover, here we go again. But now it's like, nope, now the next man up's gonna shut this down. Gus is gonna put with a huge timely save, and then all of a sudden, oh, look at us, we've won faceoffs again. We're up and out of the zone quick and easy. Like it's those little things that just continue to add up over the course of the game and has made this team. I mean, they haven't played
confidence too. It's confidence. Their confidence has built up throughout this start of the season, and they're playing with it too. Like it's so evident, especially after they got through that first period last night. It was just like, okay, they know that they can control this game now, and they recover from adversity quickly. And like just it helps when your goaltender is 95 save percentage. Like, are you kidding?
Yeah, and
95 save percent. Now I know again we're only through 6 games, but like this is the National Hockey League. You don't see those numbers even throughout 6 games.
Yeah, he's been phenomenal. There's nothing else you can really say about Gus at this point that hasn't been said with like how well he's playing. But I think for me, like if you would have told me like coming into the year, like, hey, like Gus have a 95 save percentage, I'd been really surprised. But I think the other thing that would have surprised me a lot was just how good of a start the top 2 lines have gotten off.
Yes.
Obviously, like a mini blip there for a little bit when Eck was injured and kind of slowed that second line down a little bit. But look,
they're back together and buzzing.
Yeah, like they have 2 more last night. Like they've been great, and it's such a huge part because I think, you know, especially last year, like it was very clear and obvious how long it took Boldy and Kaprizov to get going. Matt Boldy didn't score. I think, did he score a goal before Evason was fired? I don't think he did.
No, I don't think he did.
And he's got 4? Is it 3 already? I think after last night. So like Kaprizov, historically a slow starter. He's got multi-point games in 5 of 6 to start the season. Like these are your best players. They're coming out of the gates firing. Like that has to be good from a, you know, Boldy with the preseason injury, clearly not hindering him. Kaprizov, we wondered if he maybe came into the year last year, still kind of feeling some effects of injury from the previous year. I think that was accurate, but to see these two just getting out, getting going, like this top line right now, 7-1 goal differential at 5-on-5. That's tied for the 7 goals that they have is tied for third most of all NHL lines that have played together this year. They're averaging 5.81 goals per 60 minutes right now. Best line in the NHL last year was at 3.75. So that number is likely going to come down a little bit. But I mean, the offense is going through them. 7 of those goals on 3.82 expected goals for. So we talked about the finishing. I mean, that Zuccarello goal last night where Kaprizov danced the whole offense and took Bobrovsky on a walk outside the crease, like that probably doesn't have an expected goal rate of 100%, but it's really high. Like if they keep making plays like that, those goals will keep going in. So, you know, the one thing I will say with that first line that I want to see a little bit more is I want to see him get back on the defensive side of the puck a little bit, because I think a lot of like I like to call it fire wagon hockey, when both sides are just kind of exchanging chances, that most often seems to happen when that line's on the ice. Like they're getting a lot of really good looks, but you know, they have a really respectable, like I said, what is 3.82 expected goals for on the season. But their expected goal share is 51.9%. So it's a little bit further down there. For perspective, the Boldy Ek Johansson line is sitting at 57%. But last year, that same line with with Rossi, Kaprizov, Zuccarello, they were sitting at 2.03 expected goals against per 60, sitting right now at 2.93. So obviously a little bit higher than where we've seen in the past, but I think, you know, if there's anything those numbers from last year's show, it's that there's more defense that they can still play. I think another thing that's helping with that is they're not being asked to play defense right now. Like, hey, we've got a bottom 6 that's done really good at, you know, shutting down other groups. So top 6, go play offense, and we'll send these other guys out for those tougher matchups. So I think that could be part of it. So hard to complain about a line that's got a +6 goal differential through 6 games. You'd love to see that out of your top line. Marco Rossi's on a 5-game point streak, goals in 3 straight. We talked about what his ceiling could be, and it's been great to see him playing well. And as you mentioned too, like that somehow Marcus Johansson, that Ek Johansson Boldy line has seemingly kind of found some of that trade deadline magic from a couple years ago too. And they've got 2 really threatening scoring lines coming at you for 40 minutes a night.
No, yeah, for sure. Another thing, like we highlighted right when we started the show, a lot of what we were critical of, players that we were critical of, one in particular, basically turned it around in a couple games. Middleton,
Jake Middleton is back.
like he is so back.
Like, I was
Put him
so
with Brock
worried.
Faber, and he is a top line defenseman.
Like, either that or like Brock Faber is the greatest defenseman of all time.
I think it's a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B.
It could be, yeah. But like, we talked about this last week, so if you didn't listen to talk about just kind of what Jake Middleton's looked like with and without Jared Spurgeon. The long story short is, historically speaking, when Middleton has not had Jared Spurgeon to his right, they've been awful. Or he's been awful. But for whatever reason, like since the Spurgeon injury, and mind you, the first 2 games he had with Spurgeon didn't look good at all. Like they were like the worst pairing that the Wild had that night. I don't know if it's a matchup based thing or what, if it was Spurgeon not being healthy, but since Spurgeon got hurt, Middleton's played with Brock Faber for the last 4 games. He's a point per game in that stretch with a goal and 3 assists. Obviously, the big 3 assists coming last night. He's a +4 with 6 hits, 14 blocks, rocking a 50.2% expected goal share. That's been over 52% in 3 out of the 4. They didn't have the greatest game against Florida last night, but I think some of that was kind of like some garbage time stuff when the game was kind of already out of hand. So, yeah, like Spurgeon's skating, but like to me originally I would have been like, hey, as soon as Spurgeon comes back, like we reunite Spurgeon Middleton, we reunite Brodeen Faber.
No, I like this. I like this, and the fact that he can eat minutes too. Like, and he's just as quick, just as dialed. Looks just fine in the third period. Doesn't look too gassed. Like, so playing like basically a minute less or 2 than Faber. The whole time, the whole game, he's been pretty much in lockstep with him. When Faber's on the ice, he's on the ice outside of special teams.
Well, he's getting decent looks still on the penalty kill.
True. I guess I'm just going by, I guess, Florida. We didn't see any penalty. Yeah. So yeah.
And I think he's been better there too. Like I think that was a low point of his season last year was he was not good on the kill. But yeah, I mean, I would say if Spurgeon does come back soon, like you just have to ride this wave. Like those 2 are playing great, and like if I'm opposing teams and I have to hop over the boards and I'm looking at playing against Spurgeon and Brodeen, I'm not happy about it because that sounds awful. And if X out there, good luck scoring. If the third line's out there, good luck scoring. Like it just gives you options. And I think when we came into the year, like these defensive pairs were locked in, nothing's changing, but I'm maybe biting my tongue a little bit on that. Now, can this sustain? We'll see. Maybe it's just a good little hot stretch. Maybe this aggresses back, but definitely going to enjoy the best hockey Middleton's played probably in a really, really long time, at least sustained.
Yeah, no, for sure. Mateo, we literally were just talking about that too. So on point there, dialed in.
Yeah, I was literally thinking about like this is all started after he shaved the mustache. So
yeah, which it's funny because like in some other sports, football, boxing, shoot, even old school MMA, you keep that mustache because that mustache gives you like almost extra abilities. But maybe in hockey, right? You know, maybe there's only one Lanny McDonald, and he only gets the super mustache power.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if he shaved it like for the Halloween party, or if that was just like I'm just gonna shave it kind of thing. Like I want to know the lore behind why he shaved the stash. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, hey, shout out to Flyer Voracek. Trent and Foligno equal cardio guys. That is true.
Like, but I don't think
most hockey players just are, but it's just I've been noticing personally that, and it's just the last couple, I guess the last 3 games that I've covered doing watch parties for, so I've been like really like tuned in. Mm-hmm. It's just the pace of some of these first periods in a handful, I guess in half of the games that the Wild have played, have been insane. Like just go, and I'm like, I get it. You want to get that first goal, but it's like you gotta manage the pace of the game a little bit because the opposition have been slowing down, and that's where the Wild have been able to take advantage of that.
Yeah, I mean it's easy to have a league leading, not playing from behind streak when you're the ones getting off to the hot start, scoring the goal first, like you said, coming out flying, and being able also, I think, to have the players to match it is huge. Like to the comment there about Trent and Foligno being the cardio guys, like it's not a bad thing if they're not getting scored on. It means they're keeping up, right?
Yep.
Like we know Foligno's not fleet of foot. I think we talked last week about how Trennan at times has looked like he's lumbering a little bit. Hartman's a good skater, obviously. Khusnutdinov's a good skater.
Hartman's fine. He's fast.
But like it's if those guys can be carrier guys, like I said, like my expectation was never for that third line to score a lot of goals. Like that's not what Foligno did it once because he had like an absurdly high like anomaly shooting percentage in 2022 where it was like I think it was at like 28% or something insane like that. Like that's not going to happen again. Like he's a career like 8% shooter. Like they'll pop one in every now and again. I think on the Middleton goal a week ago or so, like that was with that line on the ice. I think Foligno and Trennan picked up assists on it. So like, do they need to play offense if they just play really good defense? I don't think so. Like, and I think that's again to our conversation earlier, like that Marat Lauko combo. And with Liam Mogren, we've seen a little more offense out of that line. And even if that does end up being Freddie when Hartman comes back, like that can be your line that maybe is your little bit more of your offensive pushing line. Like there may be more of a with that speed, they can attack a little bit more off the rush. Like if that's your bottom sixes, you have two lines that can play good defense and maybe pop in a goal every 3 games. If the top 6 continues to produce, that's going to continue to be a formula to win games.
No, absolutely. We'll get through these last couple comments and then start to wrap things up here. But my final question for you, Brett, is we got a few more games on the road trip. Definitely some winnable games. I mean, they all seem winnable right now with how the Wild are just buzzing and how they have not trailed or lost in regulation yet. But how do you see the rest of this road trip? Are we going to be just as giddy, just as happy next week for the podcast with, not too much to talk about, or is there going to be a lot to talk about and not in the good way?
You got Tampa and then a noon game on Saturday, which that's odd. And then we got the Penguins on Tuesday. So
which they should walk all over the Pengies, let's be
honest.
Yeah,
and I think those are all, to me, those seem like
waddling little motherfuckers.
Those seem like pretty winnable games, I'd say. Like there's none of those teams scare you. I think, Tampa isn't the juggernaut they used to be. No longer have Stamkos. They traded Sergachev in the offseason. Still have a lot of great players up front. Can never forget Braden Point. Obviously really good player. Nikita Kucherov, top 3 player in the league, probably, depending on who you ask. Like
top 3 player in the world.
Yeah. Yeah, and Andrei Vasilevsky, never a goalie that you can take lightly, because on the games he's on, he's tough to beat. So that's the one of those 3 teams that I'm a little bit scared. I'd be like a little nervous for, but I mean, we just saw them manhandle the defending champions without, 2 of their, without a top 9 forward and a top 4 defenseman. So, and it didn't even look like they skipped a beat. So, it's hard to like be negative because they just came off a game where they dominated, didn't take any penalties, and like there's never been a point all year where we've been losing outside of when we've lost the game in extra time. So it's hard to be nervous. So I'm hoping that, we'll just have some more cool storylines to chat about next week and how this team is improved to 7-0-2.
Yeah. And absolutely, delivering more than we would have expected. And basically we all said they need to be 500 at the minimum. And it looks like they're going to be well above that, which is going to be sweet.
Yeah, I think like for me, like the things I'm still watching for, like I know our point was just like the bottom 6 doesn't need to score, but it would be nice to see him maybe pop 2 or 3 goals in these next 3 games. Like let's see Foligno get on the board finally. Let's see Trennan's first in a Wild uniform. Let's see a cool odd man rush with Khusnutdinov and Lauko, something like that. I would like to see them come through. And the other thing is I want to see if Middleton and Gustafson can kind of keep doing what they've been doing, because obviously seems a little bit unsustainable for both, but hey, let's ride that wave as long as we can.
I like yes, thank you so much for the comment. 2 wins in the last 6. True, but like it's a new season, and I don't know. I don't buy into those stats too much because it's like again, it's a different season. It's like a new page that's being turned. But then I go back to, well, they're still losing against them. But if they start Fleury in that game, I'll be a little less confident. But I mean, he has to get reps against somebody.
I think the reports I've seen is that he's going to start the Pittsburgh game.
Yeah, I mean, and that's his farewell tour. I'm not surprised, nor do I hate it. I mean, about a team.
Well, the interesting thing, it wasn't like a big storyline last year when they went to Pittsburgh about how he didn't want to play like in Pittsburgh, but now So maybe he knew something last year, like this actually isn't going to be my last time.
Right.
But like, let's make it this really cool like story about how much I love Pittsburgh, and then I'll actually go there next year for my swan song. But
There you go. I do like that. I'm just waiting to dunk on you all. That's all. I'm waiting for him to sign like a favorable extension too, and then I'll dunk on all of you.
hey, I was right there with you. I said he's likely somewhere between. I mean, I didn't think he was gonna. I still am hesitant to say he's gonna maintain this level, but like we've seen.
I didn't say I didn't say he was gonna be playing at this level. All I said was it was foolish to trade him in the offseason.
Yeah,
and
you would have been selling at probably his basement value at that point.
Yeah.
So
and just basically making it so you have to go find someone else who's at his level or better next offseason, which is not an easy.
Well, and even if it was this season, like I don't think we're talking about a 4-0-2 team if Fleury and Wallstedt were the goaltenders. Like Fleury probably cost the Wild a point in Seattle. Obviously they got the point in overtime, but like that was a game that they had the lead, I think 3 different times. And not to say that the team didn't help them out totally, but they still only had, it was a shade over 2 expected goals against, which has been pretty on par with the rest of their games. And Fleury, couldn't make the key stops when they needed him to in that game, and they ultimately cost him an overtime loss. But then on top of that, Wallstedt has not gotten off to probably the start he wanted in Iowa. I don't know.
Apparently he's having a bad game today too. That's what the chat was saying.
He had 7 goals against in his first 2 starts. I don't know what tonight looks like, and I'm kind of afraid to look. Gonna look anyway.
We had some puke emojis in the live chat.
Yeah.
Thank you for all of the updates, Swerve and Stats. We appreciate it. But 2-0 right now. Okay, you made it sound a lot worse, but 2-0 is not that bad.
They're losing 2-0. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I mean, you look at it now though through what is that 8 periods? He's given up 9 goals in the AHL. So like if Fleury and Wallstedt were your 1-2 right now, to get back to the point, like might be a little bit different tune as what's going on. I mean, you look at like we talked a little bit on this show. I know you talked about a lot on the other shows in the network about how optimistic you were on the Nashville Predators this year. And their goaltending has been dreadful. Like Saros has not been good. I don't think their backup's been a lot better. Like I don't think for them it's as much as an upfront problem, but we saw the last year with the Wild too. Like your goaltending can determine so much. It arguably got Evison fired. It got Jay Woodcroft fired in Edmonton. Obviously, they rebound from that, go on to the Stanley Cup Finals. Like goaltending matters a lot, and a lot more than I think people give it credit for. And
Edmonton might have 2 Stanley Cups in like the last 5 years if goaltending, didn't. If goaltending didn't matter.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh man. Well, I just came from the perspective too that like from like a plan moving forward. If you have Gus and Wallstedt, that's a good tandem. And a good young tandem, and a good tandem that you're probably going to, at least in this first phase with them, you'll get them under as a package deal under $10 million. And that's a good, for, again, like I said, for the first wave, that's awesome for 2 young goaltenders. One who's unproven, but one who's proven that he can play that 1A role, versus if they got rid of Gus, Fleury comes back 1 more year, Fleury's gone next year. Now you have a true rookie goaltender or, a second year guy who still needs to develop, and you have to go out and find someone. I mean, Vancouver's been dealing with that, and it's not a good situation to be in. Now they're in it because of injury, but still, it's, you don't want to put yourself in a situation where you have to panic and look for a goaltender when you can continue to develop the guys you have in-house and try to keep them.
Yeah. And I still think Wallstedt's going to be fine. Like I think he'd be much better. I think playing in front of the Minnesota Wild's defense than kind of what Iowa's rolling out. From what I've seen, what I've heard, like it's still a team that has a long way to go. It's still a very young defensive core. Like they added some veteran presence up front, but that blue line's still a pretty young blue line. And I think it's going to continue to get better, and he'll figure it out. But it's nice the Wild have the luxury right now of like, hey, if you are in this mental funk, like we can give you minutes, we can help you get out of it. Like we can ride Gus, we can spot start Fleury. Like it's a good spot to be in where, if they didn't have the options, like, you just have to tough it out, and we have to tough it out with you, and it might result in some losses or shattered confidence. So
Yeah, well, that was last season for a lot of the guys and a lot of the lines, and just for Gus and Fleury, who were banged up and not playing well, and it was just like, well, we don't have any other options. Hines is here and we're still losing, so
Right.
this is what we got. But anyways, guys, that's going to wrap up the show for this week. Brett, tell everybody where they can find you. And guys, I have the link to his blog in the live chat here if you're watching. And if you're watching live, and if you're watching later, it's in the description of the video and the podcast.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at @B_Marsh92. The link in my bio's got links to the Medium articles, to my weekly newsletter, all that good stuff. Podcast is on Twitter as well. Don't use that a ton right now, more just for like anything Super Show related. But you can find us there at Wildly Informed. The O is a 0.
There you go. There you go. I'm at VI Sports Talk on Twitter, even though I don't even talk about VI Sports at all anymore. The handle is going to remain. Yes. Find us the audio version of the podcast every Friday on the SotaPod feed, along with Fellowship of the Rink. Just had general manager of the Iowa Wild, Matt Hendricks, on the show. That drops every Wednesday on the YouTube channel and on its own podcast feed, and on the SotaPod podcast feed. Judd's Buds twice a week. MNCAA. I mean, we're just rolling right now, ladies and gentlemen. And yeah, pretty much content dropping every single day on the podcast feed, wherever you get your podcast from, and content dropping on this YouTube channel as well. The latest video that we dropped on the channel was our 3rd installment of the Flight series, where the one, the only State of Hoppy and I go to one of our favorite breweries in the Twin Cities, talk about a flight that the brewery gives us, presents to us, talk about what we're drinking, go through the flight, and with every beer, we have a hockey topic related to the Minnesota Wild that we dive into as well. We just wrapped up our 3rd installment. That's the first one at 9 Mile, second one at Back Channel, and third one at Lupulin. So go check that out on the YouTube channel as well.
If you guys ever need a third for that, hit my line.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely, we will. We got plenty of mics for that. So
perfect.
That's an extended, I guess, invitation to everybody on our network now. Whoever wants to jump on for the Flight series, we may put you to work to help us set up and take down all the gear, but you get some wicked good beer out of it.
Yeah, there's so many good breweries around here, like Minnesota, Wisconsin. Like we're pretty darn blessed with the craft brew scene that we got here.
I mean, craft beer and Quick Trip is the reason I moved here.
Hey, it's 2 pretty damn good reasons.
We gotta do a flight at Quick Trip one of these times, and just one that has a good spread.
You can have a bunch of 3-2 beers.
Oh my goodness, yeah. Okay.
Or if you do it in Wisconsin, I think they do full percentage there. So maybe you gotta just cross the border a little bit, then you'll be fine.
I mean, it's not far. It's not far, and I'm not surprised that that Wisconsin operates in that way. Anyways, guys, back next week, 8 p.m. Central on the SotaPod YouTube channel. Find us every Friday, audio, the SotaPod. Brett, final word is yours.
I got nothing else. Let's go Wild. Keep it rolling.
Let's go.